Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball podcast, episode 45. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaren Will each and every week, and we are going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball.
Big day for us, Jaren. Big day.
Big day.
We finally figured out a way to be together
when we do an interview.
It feels good. It feels good to be back in the studio.
I can touch you.
And
do an interview at the same time.
And we're debuting the new backdrop.
Yes.
The first time, because we just redid this
last week.
And
actually, no. Did we? No, yeah. This is
the first time because
we recorded the night before we redid it. We recorded with Coach Corsaro.
Yeah. And we hadn't changed it yet. So we've got a new backdrop.
Shout out to Coach Graves at Indiana State for donating the Indiana State jersey.
And
Coach Thad Mata from Butler.
An
Can't
autograph.
See it too well, but we got a team poster with dogs.
Yeah.
Thad Mata.
We got a Thad Mata autograph. That feels good. The new Purdue pennant.
Yep. We took
Purdue
down
Fort Wayne.
We took down the Purdue player poster from last year just because all of those players are now gone. Butler at least still has a handful of players.
And it's signed, baby.
It's signed, so like a little different, but Purdue pennant. Obviously can't forget about the broken IU clock.
It's always 9 o'clock. We're always live.
And shout out to Adam's mom. She has been very adamant with us about rotating our Indiana flag.
Yeah.
We had it vertical. We now have it horizontal.
So
thanks to her.
We'll get a comment about that. I appreciate it, Mom. You're welcome, Mom. You're welcome. But no, this week I'm excited. So this is our final weekly episode interview of the off season.
I'd call it our final. This is our final off season episode.
Yeah, we will move. I guess you're watching this on Monday. On Thursday, we're moving into the preseason, baby. A shift. I've been thinking about last season so much. I've been thinking about, zooming in on these teams each week and talking to a coach. And I gotta say, this offseason has been a ton of fun. And I know you didn't think that it would ever come to this. I know I didn't ever think it was going to come to this. But being able to talk to head coaches in the state of Indiana about basketball, about their teams, I never thought I would get the opportunity. And I'm very, very glad and blessed and feel very lucky that we get to continue to do it. And I'm excited to do that again next off season.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's a great way to end this episode specifically. It's a great way to end our off season content because we got the pleasure of talking to, by win percentage, I'd say the head coach in Indiana with the highest win percentage.
Yeah, the winningest coach.
The most.
Is the winningest coach the most wins?
I think the winningest is the most.
Okay,
wins.
So that'd be Matt Painter.
The most.
Just the highest win percentage. Highest win percentage.
Yeah. He wins a lot more than he loses.
That's true. And has his whole career basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you can see it up there. You saw it in the title. We are, have the pleasure of being joined by Grace head coach Scott Moore, and moving to the NAIA level for this week. So, got anything else to say? You just want to bring him in?
Let's get him in here.
All right. Let's bring him in here. Come on in, coach. All right. We have the pleasure really of being joined by, the head coach of Grace College, Scott Moore. If you don't know about Grace College, it's, not only one of the best NAIA basketball programs in the state, but in the nation as well. So, coach, how you doing tonight? We're glad to have you on.
Good to have you on, boys. Thursday night, I'm watching partial Thursday night football right here. So usually Thursday night football games aren't very good, so I'll focus more on this than I will that.
Hey, no problem. We totally wouldn't blame you if we see you like looking away. We
because my fantasy team just scored. That's why I'm looking at my he and Brees Hall got a touchdown or not.
Listen, I also have Brees Hall and fantasy.
I think he already scored, so we're in a good spot already, Jaren.
All right, let's go. Love it.
We we never thought when we started this whole podcast that we would have any FaceTime with any head coach. So we'll take anything, even Thursday night football aside.
Well,
We'll
sorry
take
you're
it
stuck
all.
with me. Out of all the coaches in Indiana, you got me for a couple minutes here. So sorry, someone else was available.
That is not the case at all. We've talked the last few episodes. We were trying to figure out our last episode before we really start ramping up for the season to start, right? We're gonna recap all of our 11 or preview all of our 11 schools, and we're like, okay, let's try to get one more good interview in, good episode. And I was like, we could just, Adam and I could have just gotten together and, try to figure out something to talk about for 45 minutes. But then we reached out to you. You said yes. And we're like, all right, this is a great way to wrap up our quote unquote off season before we start preseason episodes. So we're excited to have you on. Definitely.
Appreciate it.
And you say that, we could have had anybody on but you, but I think by the numbers, we'll get into this later, but I think by the numbers, you will have the most, like the highest winning percentage out of anyone we've had on. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to kind of start talking about your background. So we're Indiana guys. You coach at a school in Indiana, so Indiana is obviously very important to all of us. But you're from Columbia City. You played college at Grace from '04 to '08, where you were 6th all time in assists. What made you choose Grace College coming out of high school?
Yeah, we were familiar with the league. My older brother, Matt, who's the Warsaw head basketball coach here in town. He was a player from '98 to 2002 at Grace, and it's one of those. My twin brother and I, we were going through the high school. We were really focused in on winning a state title. That's all we wanted to do. Recruiting, it's funny looking back because recruiting back then was so different than it is now, where I'm an NAIA coach and I'm legitimately watching freshmen and sophomores in high school, right? Like we're very much what the Division I's used to be 20 years ago. And, we always knew we wanted to play college basketball, but it was not an important piece of my mindset. It was 100% about, can Columbia City win a state title? And I was fortunate enough to play on a really, really good team. My twin brother, Doug Scheckler, was an Indiana All-Star for us, and we had a bunch of seniors when I was a senior that were really good. So it was that year when we started to kind of we got a lot of interest. Marcus, my twin brother, had a little bit more interest than me, a better scorer than I was. And so we had the Naval Academies, Army, Navy, Air Force. We had a couple of D2s. Not, at that time, there was only a couple of D2s in Indiana total. We had the NAIA, the Crossroads League was pretty heavy, and then a couple out of state. But the funny thing was, we were both getting recruited by different schools inside the league, and I was actually really leaning towards another school in the conference, mainly because I knew that my twin brother and Doug Scheckler were going to go to a different school in the conference. And long story short, it was actually the end of April, my senior year. So we were well past the state finals, right? And I had not chosen any. Some of the D1s had jumped off already just because we waited too long and they wanted to move on. And I remember calling a coach in the league, getting ready to commit, and he did not answer the phone. I didn't want to leave a message on the phone. I wanted to tell him personally, right? And that night, I just got a sick feeling in my stomach. Like, I don't know if this is the right decision. And so the next morning I wake up, you guys are from Fort Wayne. So, I get in the car, I'm driving down 30. I decide to go to the mall. I'm by myself. I'm just literally walking around Glenbrook Mall, killing time, just trying to process this. And on my way home back to Columbia City, Jim Kessler, the head coach at Grace College, had called me. And at the time I would, you ignore.
Yeah.
But there was something that came over me that got really excited to answer the phone call. And so I pick it up and I say, it's out of nowhere, within about 20 seconds, Coach, I think I want to come play at Grace. I think I want to come play for you. And he was pretty ecstatic. And he goes, I'll never forget. He goes, wow, that's amazing. Now I can tell my wife I've coached all the Moore brothers. And I'm sitting here going like, okay, wait a minute, like Matt, me, there's another one, like the 2 out of the 3 here, coach, your math isn't good. And coach goes, no, I just got off the phone with your twin brother. He just committed to Grace.
What?
No, he did not. So I call Marcus. I'm like, hey, man, I thought you were going. And he's like, no, I decided to go to Grace. He goes, I thought you were going. I was like, no, I just committed to Grace. And so I'm not kidding. That's exactly how it happened. Like we both thought we were going to different schools in the conference. We both ended up at Grace. And it just, it's one of those things where it was obviously it's the right decision. I wouldn't be here coaching now if it didn't impact my life in such a big way. So that's how we ended up at Grace. And it was amazing. The experience was amazing. My head coach was amazing. Everything, the guys I played with, just it. I really do. Because I'm a coach, like I hope that my kids have a similar experience to what I had when I was in school.
One question about your high school career. Was that before class basketball or was it classed back then?
It was class already. 97 was when class, that was the last year, 97. So 2001 to 2004 was ours. So yeah, we were kind of weird. We floated around. We were 3A my sophomore and junior year. And then it was interesting. We always knew we had a good team. They're my best friends. We grew up from 4th grade. So we knew kind of at a young age, we had a chance to be really good, but we were we got bumped up to 4A and we were one of the smallest, like the second smallest 4A. But we didn't care. Like we wanted to play in the biggest when we got to be seniors. And so we were so excited when the class came out that we were moving to 4A. Unfortunately, we had to run into Odin and Conley and Lawrence North, and probably the best high school team that's ever played. So
yeah, seriously,
think about it. I probably would have liked that the blue ring that was 3A state champ. I don't know, maybe, but no, it's cool. It's cool stories. We battled against those guys, and again, I was lucky. I had a great high school coach, great high school teammates, and our experience was unlike anything you could ever imagine, man. Just the small town, right? The whole this town shuts down at 6:30 because everyone needs to hurry up and get over to Columbia City High School to watch this little farm team play and kick the crap out of these big time schools. It was just, it was what you always dream about when you're growing up in Indiana, man.
Yeah, I mean that's what that's one thing that adores us to basketball in the state, and one thing that we always look back at and just like going to a basketball game on a Friday night or boys girls doubleheader is just so much fun, and
so much fun.
We love it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were in school, obviously being in Fort Wayne, there's 8 different high schools, so it's not quite that same because you don't have the whole town in one gym. But I remember, going to watch our high school teams play at Warsaw or Huntington, and it's just like, wow, because legitimately the entire town is there in that gym.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal, and which is why it's funny. We were just talking about off air, like basketball is so different in Indiana. Like when our friends or our kids or people from out of state come in and they see, like, wait a minute, this is a high school. Like you have 5,000 seat high school gyms. What are you talking about? It's just like, yeah, well, we also don't have 20,000 football stadiums either, but
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is cool. And it's and I got to experience that. That was the cool thing. We were kind of bummed when we went to class basketball just because having an older brother and having an older sister and kind of being young, growing through that, I watched the Ben Davises. I watched the DeKalbs going through school. I watched all those, the Newcastles, like the Damon Baileys, the Bedford North Lawrence, man, 90 or whatever that was. Like I watched those as a little kid growing up in a gym, and I was still there when sectionals were your kind of just your pocket, right? It was Columbia City and Manchester and Tippy Valley and Whitco. Like it was all the Fort Wayne schools. It didn't matter if you were Southside or Lures or Snyder, you were in the same one. And that was cool. That was, again, it stinks because kids today, they will never know that because they never experienced that, but it was just different, man. It was It felt different. It was just fun to be a part of.
Yeah, my oldest brother, he graduated in '95 and he played at Southside, and when his sophomore year, they were ranked number 2 in the state, and he's like they lost to Northside in sectionals or regionals or whatever, and he's just so, bitter, like,
That was
oh
probably
man.
around Bernard's time, right? He was
Yeah.
maybe a little later. Hollins was, but man, I
Yeah,
loved
so
going. I loved Northside Arena. Man, I loved going to
mhm,
that gym as a kid. I loved going to Southside. I mean, all those. Wayne was just a rinky dink, right? And it would just be
yeah.
like, where are all these people coming from? This is crazy. It
Mhm.
was awesome.
Yeah. So this is probably a tough question, or maybe you have one that just completely sticks out to you, but talking about your high school and your college career, what's the thing that you're most proud of? Because I'm curious to see what point of your career the thing that you're most proud of in your high school and college career is.
Yeah, it's not a hard. Honestly, it's not a hard answer. I'm most proud of the relationships that how we did things, right? Like as a kid, like you're devastated when you lose. You dream about going to the state championship, and that's all you think about from when you're 6 years old in the basement, shooting on a little mini hoop.
Mhm.
And then you get there, and I can't explain it, but like the emotions to I remember after the game, I'm in the hallway and I'm just bawling. And my Coach Benedict, came over and just he's hugging me and it's like, man, it's okay. And I'm like, I'm not even like, I don't even care that we lost. I really don't care that we lost. Like, I'm okay that we lost. We got beat by a team that was better than us. I'm bumming that, like, this is it, man. I never get to play with these guys again,
Mhm.
ever. It's the last time. And like when you feel that as an 18-year-old, right? Like that's devastating when it's your best friends and it finally hits you. That right there was the last time you're ever going to do something like that with those people. And then you just fast forward. It's the same answer for college. It's like college is a little different, right? Because you have all these good players from different situations. And they're not the kids you grew up with. They're not the kids you went to elementary school with and middle school with and been doing the little Columbia City thing, the Saturday leagues and all the kids stuff. It's no, your story, you have a story, I have a story, he has a story, and we're going to be together for 4 years. But you know how it is when you get older. 4 years in college, I mean, it goes faster
Mhm.
than high school did. And so, same thing, man. We're in Branson, where the national tournament is, and there's a really cool picture. If I could get it to you guys, someone took a picture of me and Marcus at the end of the bench, standing when time was running down on the clock, knowing that our career was about to be over.
Yeah.
Like again, that moment when you're in it, you don't think anything else but the task at hand, right? But when it hits you and it's like, man, like it's over. Like it's coming to an end in 90 seconds, this thing's over
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we're done. And so, long answer there, but like I'm most proud of maybe how we did it as to what we did. Good teams come and go. Like nobody even knows who Marcus and I and Doug Scheckler and Ryan Briggs are in Columbia City probably now. I used to have my picture hanging up in the Pizza Hut at Columbia City, and we'd walk in. My wife, I took her on a date one time, and she's like, "Why are you on the wall?" I'm like, "Believe it or not, back in the day, I used to be a big deal."
You
And
didn't choose
yeah,
that place accidentally. That was
yeah,
calculated.
yeah. Well, it was calculated for sure. It was. Yeah. I'm smarter than I look, boys. But yeah, just how you did it and who you did it with, right? The relationships. That's why I coach. We'll get into some of these other questions, but everything
Mhm.
will stem back to that. It's like, what's your why? Once you find out your why, you can be pretty happy. And it's fun to win games. It's fun to be successful. It's fun to but man, who you do it with, like, that's the best part.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that watching, college sports has kind of like that's why I watch college sports primarily is because you can tell how much they care about the team and just about each other and like these years that they have, they'll never get back, like you're saying. And it just means so much. Win, lose, national championship game, wherever it is, that last game that they have, people are crying, and it's like, yeah, it just means more. Like you can't put it into words just how
No,
much it means.
and you don't really know. You don't really like if you're not in it, if you're not a part of a team, you can't quite understand what
Hmm.
it's. And believe it, trust me here, I'm not comparing this to war, but I'm a history major, and you read a lot and you talk a lot about back in the day when soldiers, these soldiers are coming from everywhere, and these soldiers for World War II are sitting there, and you're standing next to a guy that like nothing about, but
Hmm.
you are indebted to that person, and in that situation your life is on the line, and that person has to watch your back, literally watch your back. And again, you can put that in the context of like in sports and in a locker room and a team. It's like it's something that's like similar to that, not in a life or death situation obviously, but like you're counting on someone else, and only people that are inside a locker room truly know what that feels like to be a
Yeah.
part of something that's a little bit bigger than yourself, right? And so when you see emotions and you see people, the end of something, like, again, that's where it's coming from, is because you've done this with someone else for so long. You've done the good, you've done the bad. And it's just this overwhelming emotion of like, I don't know what it is, but it's just let out, man. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a team, right? It's a team. It really, truly is.
No, I mean, that's a great analogy. I mean, there's no one you see more like than your teammates. Like,
Mm-mm.
and then it just ends. Like,
There's no one you see more real than your teammate,
Yeah.
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like, these guys and gals, man, they just like they know you and they know everything about you and all your quirks and all. Like it is a they say family. I mean,
Yeah.
trust me, if you're a locker room can be a family, good or bad.
Right. Right.
Yep.
True.
Yep.
Sometimes the other way, but yeah, it's a special feel. It's a special place, man.
I'm going to save. I'm gonna clip that. You talking about that? I coach high school baseball
Mhm.
at Southside, so I we as coaches we preach that, right? Like these guys are your brothers. Like
Yeah.
we have to be a family if we're gonna be successful. And I'm gonna clip that little snippet. I'm gonna play it on for them on repeat so they can hammer it into their heads, because high school kids, they don't always see it that way. So
Mix in the any given Sunday speech or something
There
like
you go.
that. Yeah, or pop or something. Yeah.
absolutely. So after Grace, you went and played overseas, quite a few different places: Australia, China, New Zealand, Belize, Mexico. Um, I know your twin brother was there, but I imagine, I mean, being far away from your family had to be difficult, especially because you went to college with your brother
Yeah.
at Grace in Indiana, not far. You were in state. What was that overseas experience like?
Yeah. Well, I went, go back. I played. We played at two places, China and
Okay.
Australia, and then the rest of those countries have been coaching experiences.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I'm up to. I've been to 16, I think now, different countries.
Nice.
But yeah, it's playing obviously is different than coaching. The
Mhm.
playing piece, it changes because you know how elementary is different than middle school, and middle school is different than high school, and then when you get to college, you know how different that experience is than high school. Well, overseas is no different. Someone's paying you now to play the game that you've always played, and so it's a weird feeling because it becomes more business-like, and believe it or not, it's not as fun. The experience you have was fun. Like being in Australia was a blessing, man. We were on the Indian Ocean. Marcus and I told my parents we got sick of snorkeling. Like we were sick and tired of like going out. And I know that's like first world problems there,
Yeah,
but like
you poor thing.
yeah, it was but I mean, it was fun. But like again, it goes back to like why did you love basketball? You love because you love basketball because of the guys you did it with. So now, someone's paying you to play the game you've always loved, but you feel like the reason why you're playing is no longer the same, right?
Yeah,
Your why has changed.
not just for the love of the game
Yeah,
anymore.
it honestly, and it's not as fun. It's not as fun. It's a job. So I know that sounds kind of like Eeyore, but I loved the opportunity that basketball gave us to see the world. Like that's the best part is, and even
Yeah.
today, coach, one thing we try to do is we try to take our kids to as many places as we can to use the platform that basketball gives. And you forget sometimes when you're in this business that, okay, I've been to 16 different countries. I've been all over the United States, but I've got kids every year that have never seen the ocean. I mean, literally never seen the ocean. So like when we go to these places, sometimes that one kid or those two kids, like this is life-changing for them. We took our kids to France last year and got to play like 8 games in 12 days, right? It was unbelievable. So, and then one of our kids graduated and he went back to France and now he's playing professionally. We get to go to Hawaii next year to be able to go to Christmas and not only just see the cool stuff at Hawaii and do all that, but to see Pearl Harbor, to go to the Arizona. And then also like people don't understand there's third world in the US and there's definitely rough places in a beautiful place like Hawaii. So we'll do that and we'll get to see both ends of the spectrum, the cool side, the rainforests, the beautiful water. And then there's this side where like, hey, like these people need our help, right? So that is by far the most rewarding thing about the trips and the experiences is everywhere you go is different. And everywhere you go is uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable. And, Mark Davidson, who I think you guys should know being in Fort Wayne, he was just being a Black Hawk Christian, passed away with cancer a couple of years ago. He told me one time, and I'd never forget, he thought he knew what joy was until he went to where his adopted son and daughter were. When he went there for the first time, and I can't remember what country it was, but when he saw them and he saw how little they had and how joyful they were regardless of it. He's like, it's the first time I knew what the definition of joy was when I saw people who truly didn't need. And again, we have these things, right? These cell phones that are just connected to us. And it's like, you guys are sitting in your chairs and it's comfortable. I'm watching on a big screen the football game and it's like, things are okay, right? Like we don't have very many problems. So to see that and to experience that is another piece of the overseas thing that like we get to just show these kids, right? Like we're in a good spot, man. Like you're okay. But there are places that aren't, and there's some people that aren't, and it's tough. It's tough, but it gives them a good perspective.
That's awesome.
Yeah, more than just basketball. I love that. When you're going to Hawaii, if we'll you need someone to tell your story, we'll come tell your story. We'll build some houses, whatever you need us to do.
Trust me, I've heard enough. My seniors aren't too happy about it. I said, you guys got to France, you got to play at Purdue, you got to go to Oregon. Shut your mouth. You don't have to.
Somebody hasn't been like, Coach, I'm in a red shirt.
Yeah, trust me. I'm sure they're ready to get rid of me. I'm sure not one of them want to stick around with me for nothing.
So let's talk about how you ended up back at Grace College as an assistant and what it was like learning from your former head coach and Hall of Famer Jim Kessler.
Yeah, another cool story. To be transparent with you guys, I was getting out of the business. I was with my brother for 3 years. I made that transition as a player, and he had just got the head coaching job at Mount Vernon in Ohio. It was a really young head coach for a college. I didn't know what I wanted to do with life. I thought I wanted to be a high school, coach and teacher. The opportunity came up, so I went with him to Ohio. I started dating my now wife. It was about a 3.5 hour separation from us. We did that for 3 years. And, to be honest with you, we weren't great. And I had so much success as a player. And obviously not because of me. I just happened to pick the right team to play on. I had some studs, but I had so much success as a player that, like, guys, it was hard losing and feeling like I would always point back to me. Like, I'm just not very much of a, oh, well, you're just not a good enough player. Like, let me go get better players. I would constantly go home and go, man, I'm just not good at this. Like, maybe I don't know how to make someone else win. And that's a real feeling of like 3 years and you're not even 500. And man, I can't even count the number of losses I had in the last 10 years on my hands. And all of a sudden I'm quadrupling that in a month, it feels like. So I told my brother back in, it was 2012, I think it was, that I was done. I was going to go back to Indiana. I was going to get into sales, and maybe it was time to get out of basketball. And I kid you not, just like what happened when I chose Grace, I got a phone call from Jim Kessler the next day. And I know you don't know Coach, but the conversation was very much like, hey, man, what are you doing? Like right now? He's like, no, what are you doing next year? And I'm like, I'm sitting here and I'm living with my brother too at the time. I'm living. I'm like, hey, did you talk to Coach? He's like, I haven't talked to Coach in a month. I'm like, what is going on? And he's like, hey, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I haven't had a chance to talk to your brother yet, but I have an opportunity. I want to run by you. Would you think about coming to Grace and coaching with me? I'm getting old. And I'm like, Coach, you were old when I was playing, but you're ancient now, man. And yeah, it was just one of those things where like, I let go and I was ready to get out of it. And this sign just like, man, I think I told him yes in about 10 seconds. So I packed my stuff up and I moved back home and I get into exercise science and kind of the fitness world. And, I'm working for $1 and a penny. And 7 years go by and I kind of thought like had a good idea. Like I was kind of the next one in line coming back to be, I thought that was kind of the reason why he wanted to bring me back. But like anything else, Coach was awesome for me because he gave me so much to do, where to the point I was literally almost doing everything. Because again, I'd ask and he'd give it to me. So scheduling, budget, the road trips, the meals, like anything, I was doing everything. And not that he couldn't, it's just I was his guy. And so he wanted me to learn and he said, sure, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Well, I think things kind of got easy and it was like, hey, we're successful. I can keep doing this. And, it came a point where I was like, man, I think, I don't think he's ready to retire. I think he's gonna keep doing this. And, I love Coach K so much. I did not want to be the reason why he quit coaching.
Right.
And so same situation. I walked into his office. This was probably beginning of December in 2018, 19, something like that. And I said, Coach, same thing. I love you. I'd do anything for you, but this is going to be my last year doing this. We're trying to start a family. I'm working a lot of hours. And he looked at me and in Coach K fashion, he goes, okay. And he stood up and he left the room. And I'm sitting in his chair going, what just happened? Did I just quit? Am I done? Like I went home
right.
and I'm like, babe, I'm done coaching. Like I'm finished. This is my last year.
Effective immediately.
I'm like, what just happened? But I felt such at ease, right? I felt a peace about it. Like, okay, like it's okay. If this is not God's plan, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
The next day, I get a text message from my athletic director. I said, hey, clear your lunch plans. So I clear my lunch plans, go to lunch, sit at Ruby Tuesdays. Like it was yesterday.
Nice.
He sits down and he goes, okay. Remember, this is like December. He's like, we got to keep it quiet. We're going to wait till February. In February, we're going to announce Coach K's retirement. And then we're going to announce you in the same day as the next head coach. And I'm going, what just happened? Like literally, like talk about it like an emotional roller coaster for 24 hours. But the reason why I tell you this story is because, again, it goes back into my life about choosing Grace to begin with, choosing to come back to Grace coaching, and then choosing to then become a head coach at the school. Every big decision that I've ever made in my life that I was super unsure about, the moment I let go, completely let go, and just said, look, I'm good. Whatever God has planned, whatever, I'm good. It's always seemed to just kind of work out, always. And so that was 6 years ago. We're in year 6 now, and we've won some games, and it's neat to do it at a place that and that you love. And I think one of my biggest pitches to recruits is like, there's no smoke and there's no magic tricks with us, right? I'm literally selling what I believe in, and I'm not going to do this a long time. I know that there's other plans for me. But man, I'm having fun right now. It's been a blast, man. But that's the story, man. That's how I got back into coaching, and that's why I'm here today.
Sounds like, what, 3 times now? You didn't choose Grace. Grace chose you.
I can't get away from it, man. I just unbelievable.
That's an awesome story. Just real quick, what's it like following like a legend like Coach Kessler? I mean, he was there for what? Over 40 years, right?
Yeah, 42, I think, as a head coach, 44 overall. A couple as an assistant. But yeah, people ask me that all the time. It wasn't hard at all. It was like I was his guy, like Marcus and I, and and if Coach K, he's so humble and he's so genuine and he's such a loving man, and he's a mentor of mine. And I just the reason why it wasn't difficult was because the foundation was always going to remain the same. I wasn't changing anything about what we were built on, and the only thing I needed to hear from him. And he gave me the best advice I could give any coach today. When the transition was taking place, he pulled me aside and he goes, Scotty, he goes, do me a favor. One, you need to do it exactly how you want to do it. Don't do it like I did it. You got to do it exactly how you want to do it. Unapologetically, right? And he said, this is my favorite part, and I've stuck with this forever. My recruiting is all based on this sentence he told me. He goes, build a team that you would want to play with. Build a team you'd want to play on. If you wouldn't want to play with that kid, don't take that kid. And I constantly, every kid that comes into our program, I think to myself, could I be that dude's point guard? Could I play with him? And if the answer is I don't know, we don't go any further. And it's the best advice I've ever gotten. The following a legend in general is hard. But I was pretty self-confident in who I was as a person, knowing that look, I'm not Jim Kessler. I'm not going to try to be Jim Kessler. He is over here. He is the man. He's a legend. I have to be Coach Moore. And if I do it my way, and, just like he said, we'll be successful. And hopefully, hopefully he's proud of that. He's around all the time. He still pops in my office and tries to tell me about some new offensive scheme or something that he saw on Twitter or something, which is always great. But yeah, I love him to death, man. And it's, I am so fortunate to have my mentor still a part of what we're doing today.
That's awesome. I think that's we love asking that question to coaches, right? Whether they're a head coach or an assistant coach, is, how did you get to where you're at now?
Yeah.
And every coach has had a different story, but they've all just been the dominoes just fell at the right time. It was, Coach Sprue at Southern Indiana. He got called and said, hey, we need you in Hawaii in like 3 days to come be our video coordinator. Brooks Miller at Trine, he drove halfway across the country overnight for an interview and got the job. Like it's one of the coolest things is talking to coaches who are great, have great minds, are great coaches, but also just life just kind of
we've yet to find a story that's like, I wanted to do this, so I did that, and then I wanted to do this, then I did that, and now I'm here.
And the window, there's not many jobs. Like, you guys know that. It's so hard to become a head coach at any level. Like, there's only so many number of jobs that are available. Like, I am one of, less than 200 NAI coaches in the country. Like, there's 200. Right. And so what you're talking about, even with Brooks and some of these other guys, is like, you have these moments in these pockets where these windows, these opportunities present themselves. And I think, like anything else, you got to be ready to say yes, man. You got to be ready to take a chance and say yes. You're never going to be ready. It's like having a kid, right? You can read any book you want, but until you're a father and like that kid comes out and you're like, okay, now what do I do? Like, you just got to experience it. And there are a ton of guys in our profession where the reason why they're where they're at is because they said yes, and they had to travel. They had to take a chance. It's not always an easy just stair step of like, I did this and this and this, and now I'm a head coach, right? It's hard. It's hard. And there's a lot of coaches that coach for a long time and don't retire. So it's like, just being an assistant is hard. But yeah, everybody's stories, man. You're right. I've listened and heard tons of stories that are just like, I can't believe you got to where you were. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's I think that's one of our favorite questions to ask because it's the best conversation. It's the best story.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I could ask you about anything in your career, but the best story to me is always going to be how you got your job or how you decided to take the job. So I think that's awesome. So, we've had the opportunity. We've talked to several different coaches now at the Division I, semi-Division II level, and Corsaro, who went from Division II to I, and then Division III, and then now you at NAIA. So and we've talked about how the different levels are different between Division I, II, and III. But talk to us a little bit, to us and our listeners, right, who primarily follow Division I. How is NAIA different from the NCAA?
Well, from a talent level, it's a tough question because like the Division I level is so spread out. Like the difference between the Power 5 and the low major is so significant. Like, you're talking, you're worlds apart, right? So
like two different divisions entirely,
and probably more, honestly. Like, you have the high major, you have the name high major, but they're not actually high major. You have the mid major, you have the low mid major, then you have the low major.
Right.
There's 5 or 6. Honestly, Division II is kind of its own. It's a different breed, man. It's like, it's high quality basketball. It just happens to be like what part of the region you're in, right? Like, and that's the same probably as Division III is like, trying to win the national championship. You give Brooks a lot of credit. I would argue winning a title at the Division III level, but doing it in Indiana is way harder, because in Indiana, you are competing way more with the Crossroads League, with some of the Ohio Division IIs, and even some of those, like, again, you got those Purdue Fort Wayne, you got some of those, like, it's a real thing. The ODAC conference, like that Virginia conference, it's an unbelievable Division III league. The difference is, well, there's no D2s and there's no D1s around. So like, you get a kid who's a really good player in high school, and he doesn't feel like going 9 hours away to go to Division II school. He'll just stay home and go to a Division III. Well, if it's like that ODAC conference, like, he just becomes a powerhouse, right? So regional, like where you are in the country, really matters, depending on, like, for any example, Indiana, we got 1 Division II, 2 Division twos total. Like I don't compete against Division twos. I don't have to.
Yeah.
I would say, I told you this a little bit off air, as far as our league goes, and people know this more now, just especially with the, recruiting Indiana kids. The Crossroads League has become essentially a low major. So we're just like, nowadays, I can get a kid who is also being recruited by Division ones. Like I can get a kid out of high school that has a choice between low major, maybe even a mid major, and I can get them to come to Grace. Indiana Wesleyan can get them to come to Wesleyan. Corey at Huntington, he can get a Division I player to come to Huntington, not transfer back to Huntington. And so that's what you see a big difference is. I think a couple reasons for that. Obviously, with the COVID stuff, like a lot of the mid majors and, everybody's trying to stay old. And so we have been able to find ourselves getting a better quality high school player because everybody wants a 22-year-old. So they're passing on a lot of these kids. The biggest differences you see between the NAIA level and the NCAA Division I, Division II, Division III level is just the restrictions, right? I think a guy like Brooks Miller, a good example, like he's a relationship guy. He is as good as it gets. But there's a lot of restrictions that Brooks has to follow. And, there's a lot of barriers. Well, for the NAIA, there are no barriers, right? Like I can have full access to my kids anytime, anywhere. In recruiting, I can walk up to any high school kid at any time and I can say, hey, let's go to lunch. And we could sit down and we can have a 2-hour conversation and like no one's looking over my shoulder saying, hey, I think Coach Moore is recruiting violations, right? It's just not happening. So it gives us a little bit more advantage with like, I think we can really, really get to know the person who we're recruiting at a deeper level than a Division I can, because again, the amount of time and how deep we can get involved with these kids for such a long period of time. Scholarships for us, they're really good. The NAIA, you got, full ride scholarships. I tell people all the time, like, look, I can give you as much money as Indiana can give you as far as school goes.
Right. Yeah.
You start getting NIL, we're not going to hit that. They're not going to hit that category. But like from as far as education goes, like, yeah, you can go to school and you can have a lot of school covered. And when you're 18, you don't really think much about it. But man, when you're 30, 35, and you go, man, what a blessing. I don't have a dime to pay. Like, this is crazy. Right. And so, yeah, there are a lot of differences between the levels, but you're just seeing more and more and more. As far as the basketball skill goes, guys, I got just as many skilled players as Power Fives. Sometimes probably more. When you talk about shoot, pass, and dribble, you come watch our guys and you watch Elijah Malone, at 6'10", 300 pounds, dribble up the court as a lead guard sometimes, which he was never supposed to do, but he got you watch that and he's like, okay, yeah, he doesn't belong here probably, but like even my 6-foot guards, the stuff they can do with the basketball, like our league is flooded. Zach Goodline graduated from Huntington. He was good with the basketballs I've seen anybody. Luke Brown, transferred into Wesleyan, who you guys know from Blackford. Like, we just get on and on and on, shooting, passing, dribbling. I'll go to these Power 5, practice or something like that. I'm going, wow. Like, but you know what they are? They're athletic and they're a little taller. And I've been able to see this with E being at Colorado now. You get there and you're like, okay, you can see like the way that kid moves a little bit different than the way that my kid moves. He moves different, right? He's got a little bit more juice to him. Jumping, like you blink and that dude's elbows at the rim. My guy might get to the rim. It's going to take a little bit longer to get up there, right? And he doesn't stay up there as long.
Yeah.
Those are the biggest differences. Yeah, I love where I'm at, honestly. I've had a little bit of opportunity. My assistants have had opportunity just to kind of look at some different places. But, like, man, it's awesome. It's fun to, like, I really need to get you guys to a game because, you know, you would even see like it's probably a little bit more pure of basketball just because of the limitations, maybe athletically. It's just a fun watch, man. The skill set is just incredible.
That's really nice that you compared it that way because you guys played. Was it last year you guys played Purdue?
Yep, last year.
I mean, I guess by the NCAA tournament, the second best team in Division One, and you guys held your own better than Stanford, who also made the NCAA tournament. Like you lost by fewer points. This is also a team that made the NCAA tournament. Like it's crazy to just put it in that context. And like we were lucky to talk to Ben Hummerhouse, who transferred up from Huntington, is now all the way through Evansville and into Illinois, and just like
I mean, think about that, guys. Ben was like the fourth on our scout. Like he's the fourth player on the scout going like, hey, this kid's good. He's long. He can guard. He's going to ghost ball screens and just pick and pop. And then 3 years later, he's playing in Illinois. You're like, what are we talking about? But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just, it's those guys are everywhere.
Yeah. So, obviously talked about how you guys, played Purdue and, played well. I mean, Purdue is great. You guys are great, but your first 4 seasons were incredible. But I want to talk about last season. Team was ranked number 1 for, I think, most of the year. You ended up going 34-2 with your second and, last loss coming in the NAIA Final Four. What do you think was the key to like achieving that level of success? You've had sustained success since you've taken over, but last year was just incredible. What do you think was the key?
Get out of the way. I'm not kidding. I've been around a long enough time, and I'm not saying this, and you could probably, if anything, you should tell me I'm not a very good coach because I probably should have won the whole thing. But we had one of the best basketball teams in the NAIA in a long, long time. I mean, and I wouldn't just be saying that just to throw it out there. People know me. I don't just throw that around. But, like, I knew pretty early on in about the first or second week, like, holy smokes. I told my assistants, like, boys, I want you to enjoy every second of this because you may never coach a team like this again. Like, we got it all. We got it all. It was just a mix of, yes, they were talented. Yes, we had a few guys that probably were above us level-wise. But also it was a mix of like the loyalty, and they'd been with me for so long, right? Like they were there as freshmen, and played a little, and then as sophomores they played a little bit more, and then as juniors they're really good, and then as seniors they're almost untouchable. And I think that's what you can't teach today. Really, is like there is something about kids who buy into something, and the trust that was not only with each other but with me, with our other assistants, with the program. I'm not exaggerating. I could have said run backwards and dribble with your nose, and they would have tried it just because, like, okay, coach said so, let's do it. It was just a different feel, and it wasn't just Elijah. Like, I truly believe this. Like I told E all the time, like, dude, you don't have to be superhuman for us to be special. You can have an off night. Like you're fine. You can play poorly, but like a couple things like you guys always have to do. You always got to give me great effort. You got to be a great teammate all the time. Like there's some things you can't not be great at. And they just picked each other up, and people, I'm serious. I'm excited this year because I feel like I get to teach some basketball again.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of me teaching basketball last year. You can understand, like, it was, okay, how do I take 8 alphas and how do I keep them going in the same direction with the same plan? Oh, and how do I convince them to only play 23 minutes a game instead of 29 minutes a game? Oh, how do I convince Ian Scott, who's probably a first-team All-American, like, hey, man, you're going to be our 6th man this year, but just trust me, okay?
Right.
And now I mean, you talk to me in 6 months, Ian Scott's probably going to be one of the favorites for National Player of the Year or Conference Player of the Year at least. And he's like, where did this kid come from? It's like, well, Coach Moore was an idiot and had him coming off the bench for 3 years. But yeah, man, it's just when you get a mix of special kids and they give up a little bit of themselves and they see that success because of that, then it just kind of just starts like a train going downhill, man. It's like you can't stop it once it starts. And I do tell my assistants now, not saying we're going to be that good or that good again, but like guys, like only we can mess this up. Like we're the only one that can screw this up now by bringing in the wrong people to our locker room.
Yeah.
So we're very selective on that.
Well, I mean, don't sell yourself short here. I mean, Coach Calipari had Devin Booker coming off the bench in Kentucky, so just because you have a great player doesn't mean they have to be starting. But
true. It's probably the most overrated thing in basketball, by the way, is who starts.
Yep. We're gonna tell people if you wanna develop, go to Grace. I mean, it's the place where you can go develop, be the best player that you can be, because that's what it sounds like you're doing.
Well, development is key. I think that's a missed concept today because everybody wants like immediate. And even the kids want like, hey, I want to be a freshman. I want to play 30 minutes. I want to be an All-American. And that's one thing where it's good for us because even in my recruiting pitch, I'll always tell these kids, hey, I'm not promising you anything. I'll promise you one thing. I'll love you. That's it. That's the only thing you get. I've had too many kids come in our program over 16 years now that we gave a lot of money to. They weren't very good. And then I've also had All-Americans who, guys, they showed up and they were getting a couple thousand maybe. And so like, who am I to sit there and say, this is what you're going to be? I promise you this. It's like, no, that's just not how it works. Any kid who hears that from a coach should run so fast in the other direction.
Right.
Because it's not reality, man. It's just, you don't know. You have no idea.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes complete sense. So we've talked about it a few times, on this episode specifically, but I mean in general, right? Our show, we typically cover the 11 Division I schools in Indiana. I believe there's 15 NAIA basketball programs in the state. Something like that. Eight are all in the Crossroads League.
Yep.
Obviously Grace operating at a very high level. We've talked about that. But there's also Bethel, Wesleyan, 2 high level programs as well. How beneficial is it to have, good teams so close, not only in your conference, but just in proximity too, and in terms of being in the same state?
Yeah, well, we're spoiled. Like my average travel is 40 minutes. And so as a student athlete, right, that's a big selling point for us is like, hey, you come to Grace, you guys don't think about it, but like you go somewhere else and you're going to be on a bus for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And you're going to be playing on a Sunday and getting back on a Tuesday morning and then turning around and going somewhere else. And so that's a big selling point, but also like the strength of the league, the strength of the coaches. We are loaded. I may be the 10th best coach in our stinking league because these guys, man, what it does for you is it doesn't give you a chance to breathe and it continues to make you better. You're sitting there going like, you're watching stuff and you're going, man, like how he did this or how he did that. And if you don't get better, you're going backwards. And so that's what I love so much about it is like, I like to learn anyway, but I have so much respect for not only what our coaches do in the league, but how they do it. And it's a special thing to be a part of because not only the talent, not only the proximity, not only the amount of Indiana kids that our schools get, right? Like you look at rosters and it'd be hard pressed not to say that 90% or more are Indiana kids. And so the whole thing you guys are talking about were, hey, Friday nights in Fort Wayne or Columbia City, the small town feel. Well, what's even awesome is like they can follow these kids on, and it's 25, 30, 40 minutes down the road. You know, we're getting a Warsaw kid after next year, the Bricker kid, who's a really nice player. Well, man, he's going to bring 400 people just himself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
In the same town, right? It's just, and it's just cool. It just makes it, to see the gyms. That's the other thing the proximity does, guys, is the gyms are packed. Like, they are full. And, you know, I think last year we sold out 15 of our 19 home games.
Nice.
I mean,
That's
sold
awesome.
out. And you're just talking like, it's such a cool feeling when you're playing in that environment, and for a moment you forget about, like, man, forget D1, like, because March Madness is not D1. Like, that's what people see and that's what they
Right.
think. But man, that's a rare occurrence for anyone who goes and plays Division I basketball. But man, they can get it where we're at, and it's high level, and the coaching is great, and the gyms are awesome, right? We have one of the best facilities in the country. The thing is just, it's awesome to just walk in and go, I can't believe I work here. Like, they pay me to just coach in this gym, right? It's just cool, man. It's awesome to be a part of.
That's awesome. So what you're saying is that there's probably scalpers at the NAIA level in Indiana.
There might
because
be. Well, we're getting into this NIL thing where it's like, it's probably coming into my level as well. So who knows?
Yeah. How does the NCAA tournament work at the NCAA? How does the tournament work at the NAIA level? Because I know, like, at the Division II level, you know, it's different than Division I, where it's so regional, and, you know, having so many good teams in your area like you do could come back to bite you. How does it work
I'll
at
tell
your
you this.
level?
My next job, I have no problem if the NCAA Division II wants to hire me as like a side commissioner, because I will reformat their tournament, because it's the biggest trash.
It's horrible. It's
awful.
horrible.
It's awful. I can't believe they still do it. That's another topic over here. But our tournament is just like the NCAA Division I, 64 teams, regional based. The difference is, what we do a better job than Division II is, you see, like, for our conference, for example, let's say we get 5 Crossroads teams or 6 Crossroads teams in the tournament. Well, we're not playing in the same pod at all. Right. So, like, you go to 16 locations across the country. There's 4 teams at a location. You got to get out of that pod to go to our Final Four, would essentially be what the Final 16 is. So it's kind of cool. It used to be 32. They dwindled it down a little bit. So all 16 of those teams that make it go to Kansas City. And then from there, they try to get to obviously one title. So it's really cool, though, because the NAIA has done a really good job of, you know, you have these powerhouses, and the Midwest is a power region, right? Like, we have us in the Mid-South is really strong, and we have a lot of national titles between us. But chances are, if I get to, you know, Kansas City, and Greg Tyne go at Wesleyan gets to Kansas City, and Huntington, you know, Corey Alford gets to Kansas City, we probably won't even see each other unless we got, like, to the Elite 8.
That's good.
Like, they do such a good job of just manipulating, and, you know, they do the best they can, because obviously you can't have a super high seed play another super high seed in the round of 30.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. But it's not perfect, but they've done a really good job. And again, every year I sit back and go, why doesn't Division II get out of this regional crap? And nobody wants to play a team for the 5th time in a season.
I really don't understand.
I
don't understand how it's like that. Like, how has it gone on and just continued, and no one said, like, maybe this shouldn't be.
And I know a lot of things are, you know, everything's a bit money based, right? It's saving money here, saving money. But I'm just like, yeah, you know, I think one year, it wasn't too long ago, I think probably 4 or 5 years ago, I saw that, and I think it was the Indiana Conference. It was like Southern Indiana. It was like that region right there. Like 4 of those conference teams played right away. And they just, like Indy and Southern Indiana or something like that had, like, they were meeting up for the 4th time just to get out of the first round. Like they played twice, then they played the conference
Ridiculous.
tournament, and then they turned around and played the first round of the national tournament. And at that point, I think one of those teams, I think they both were really highly rated. One of those teams went home and they were like 25-3 in the year.
Yeah. Like should have been, an Elite Eight team at least.
And you talk to any coach in the country, I would rather play a top 10 team in the country than play my league again. Literally, if you ask anyone, send me to California just to play another team.
Right.
As long as I don't have to play St. Francis and Bethel and Huntington again for the fourth time. And they would say that same thing about Grace. Like it's just hard beating up on your conference teams, man.
Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't have to, playing that same team so many times is ridiculous.
It's bad.
I've kind of got a two-parter question because you talked about NIL a little bit. Does that exist at the NAIA level?
Short answer, yes. Yes, it's, NIL, the real NIL behind it was always, it was back to that like Chris Webber days, right? It was, hey, this person is not making any money and they're selling a lot of uniforms. So the whole concept was, well, let's get money back into the athlete's hands because it's marketable, right? Well, as coaches, we knew like this is going to be a disaster because what was supposed to be a name, image, and likeness turned into, well, it's just a collective, and then people are just buying players, right? And so to answer your question, has NIL got to the NAIA? Well, technically, no. I think it's just starting. You'll start to see some teams doing some commercials and doing some stuff, but like none of these kids are marketable to make a dollar, like truly make money, even at the highest level. I mean, maybe Shadur Sanders, right? He could probably profit. The Tim Tebows of the world, the Reggie Bushes, like those guys would have made buku bucks. Johnny Manziel. These kids they're going to make any money for anybody. So the collective part where people are giving money to give to you, to give to a kid on top of scholarships, yes, that is a real thing.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of in the same vein here, I guess Grace made, I don't know, headlines because they were, I think, the first partnership between a company to have their jersey sponsored, with you getting sponsored by Zimmer.
Yep.
What does that exactly mean, and what kind of goes into that? How's that going to benefit Grace College?
Well, I didn't know if you guys saw my Rolls Royce in the garage. Yes, that one might get me in trouble. Actually, you may want to edit that one out or something.
It means they're gonna give you a hip whenever you need one from your playing days.
Yeah. No, it was well, first off, it was smart for us anyway because in Warsaw we're the orthopedic capital of the world, so the relationship we have with Zimmer Biomet is such a big deal that alone was kind of obvious. And then, just like anything else, you do want to, it's not always important to be first. It's not always beneficial to be first, but there are some benefits to it. It is kind of cool, right? Like, hey, this is coming into play. We have an opportunity here. It's not cheesy. It's not, funky. It's not like we're making $1 million out of this whole thing. We have an opportunity with a Fortune 500 company in our town to put that logo on every single uniform and kind of make some headlines, and positive headlines, right? I think it's a good relationship for both Grace College and Zimmer Biomet. And it's really neat where, my athletic director is fielding a bunch of calls from people like, hey, talk us through this. What does this look like? Because, unfortunately, that's where we're kind of at in the age of athletics is, you're trying to raise money and you're trying to give an experience. And for us at the NAIA level, our experience is different. Like, I'm just not going to have a pocket full of money to just give a kid for playing basketball. We're not blue chips. Like, it just doesn't exist here. So, But what it could do is, hey, here's, X number of bucks. That Hawaii trip's expensive, right? Like,
yeah.
But that's an opportunity that a kid I can sell that as our program. Like, hey, come to Grace. We can give you a really neat experience that even a lot of these high majors are given. But to do those things, they cost money. And, we're fortunate enough and blessed that we have a lot of people that give to the program already. But it's just another way for the university to just keep being streamlined and knocking down doors and seeing what we can do.
And, you can say, hey, if you come play for us, you blow out your knee, we can just drive you down the road.
Just like that.
Good.
New knee, new hip. Yeah.
You'll be back. You'll be back for our very next home game.
Yep. It's short turnaround time, man. Injury free. Yeah, that's for sure.
No, that's really cool. I was excited when I saw that. And then I have a friend that I went to college with, and he works at Zimmer, but he makes like college sports content. And I sent it to him, and I was like, "Hey, did you set this up?" He's like, "What the? Like, what is this?"
It's cool.
Very, very surprised, but pleasantly surprised to see it.
Good.
And then, so last question we have for you. What should everyone expect from the Lancers next season, or I guess this coming season?
Who knows, man? I get my family, you got to understand, like, being from a basketball family, my whole family lives in town and we're basketball family. So, like, nobody gives me a harder time than my twin brother who sits in the third row and tells me how much I suck. We won 34 games last year, and I was probably the worst coach in the country. So, my humbleness is down is to the bottom as you can imagine. But I don't know. Every single team. This is every coach will tell you this. Every single team, it's fun because it's kind of this fresh breath of air that, like, you don't know. Like, you have an idea, but you're like, okay, this year I have 7 seniors. Like, the cupboard's not bare. We graduated a lot of really good players, and I know that the headlines are like, oh, how are they going to be? They just lost a kid at Colorado. Two twins went to Marshall. They lost Jake Wadding, Cole Beck. Like, how are they going to replace those guys? And the funny thing is I feel like you say that every year. Good players leave and good players leave, and you're always like, well, how do I replace him? Well, you don't replace him. You just get, again, I don't replace Coach K. I'm me, and you got to go find another. And, hopefully we've done that. We've got 4 really good freshmen. We've got a good transfer in, but we are loaded with seniors, and we're loaded with experience. I do have one kid that I really do believe is one of the best players in the country. He just happened to be behind the best player in the country.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think Ian Scott is in for you call it a breakout. I mean, it's not a breakout for us because we see him every day, but I think to the rest of the world, how many games will we win? I don't know, but I know we'll be competitive. And again, like I said at the beginning of this thing, is I know that win or lose, like, they're going to do it the right way, and the gym will be packed, and hopefully they give me another year after this, and I got a 1-year contract after last year, so hopefully we get one more after this year. But yeah, we'll see. Get back to me. I may be joining you guys on the chairs there and doing interviews.
There we go. It'll be the 3 of us, and we'll be rewriting the Division 2 tournament together.
We can make a few phone calls and get some other guys in here.
It'd be perfect. If you're ever out of a job, you have our information.
We don't pay very much, but
you
that's
said
okay. I got all that NIL money that came in. Right?
There we go. And you said that when you started getting paid for your play, it wasn't the same. So we're just out here for the love of the game.
That's right.
You can come out and do it for the love of the game.
A long time ago. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for your time, and appreciate you doing this. I'd love to formal invitation. You guys are in Fort Wayne, so you're not very far away. You're not allowed to come to St. Francis and watch us play. That's bogus because that's like way. But you guys come over to Winona Lake. It's 40 minutes away. We'll treat you right. We'll get you in the door, get you an alumni suite, and I would love, literally live, to be able to show you what, holy smokes, NAIA basketball is pretty special.
We will definitely, we're trying to make our rounds this year, so we will definitely make sure we get over there. That'd be awesome.
We'll get you a T-shirt to hang on that wall, and tell Coach Graves I shut his brother down in the Hall of Fame Classic back in 2004. So, and then he went on to have 100 every other game. So I felt good that I held him like 29 or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely throw Grace up there.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Awesome.
All
Thanks,
right.
Coach.
Yep, thanks, Coach.
Man, you can see why he wins.
I understand why he's a winner, for sure. I was gonna say that. I'm kind of upset that you said it before me. But no, that was phenomenal. Coach Moore, brilliant guy, even better person.
Yeah.
From what we can tell, it's awesome. I mean, I loved his story about how he just. I mean, you said it. He didn't pick Grace at any point in his career. Grace always just picked him.
Yeah.
When he was coming back to or choosing where to go to college. Then when he was coming back and thinking about getting out of coaching, and it's like Coach Kessler called and said, "I want you to be an assistant," and then he got the head coach job.
Yeah.
And it's just bam, bam, bam. Grace called his name.
I love that Coach Kessler is Coach K.
He said that, and I was like, "Wait a minute."
I love it.
I love it.
Because like Coach, Coach K is obviously like Coach
Kessler.
Yeah. Like you're like, oh, this is like when you say Coach K to somebody, it's like, oh, I know who that is, but you just said it. This is Coach K. Love it.
Yeah.
Just like it's like calling someone else like Shaq. It's like I know Shaq. It's like no, this is Shaq.
Yeah. I mean, we went to high school with Shaq.
That's true. See, great point. But no, I mean it's great to talk to somebody who, grew up in Indiana and, just gets it. He just gets it. And I liked hearing about the NAIA level, about how it's different and how they have their NCAA tournament figured out. Division II,
Not NCAA.
sorry, their
third
postseason tournament figured out, whereas the Division II tournament is nonsensical.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's like the one outlier. But no, I mean it was great to learn from him and just like put into perspective, I think, for our listeners, where NAIA is. Like it's not like Division 1, 2, 3 NAIA. Like NAIA, depending upon like what level your team is, could be anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to when I was in high school and looking at colleges for baseball as, I always looked at NAIA. I was like, okay, I don't want to play NAIA. And now after talking, I was like, man, I really wish I would have.
Should have played NAIA.
Should have played NAIA. Just because, I mean, it's the competition's level still there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just got a different name.
They say fewer restrictions.
Acronym in front of the name.
Yeah, it's really cool. Because I mean, I think getting like understanding the difference is important.
Yeah.
Because, like you were just saying, like, why would I want to go play at an NAIA school when I could go play Division III? And it's like, well, I mean, they'll pay you, go to school, like they'll pay for your school. And so it's not just like this is better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's different. It's completely different. But
yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
He's a great guy. I think, what do you say? He was like the 10th best coach in the state.
Yeah. That's not true.
Ridiculous.
I'd say he's probably.
But I think, yeah, I mean, he's
top 3. But no, it was a great conversation. Really honored that we were able to, get him on. I mean, he told us off air he was getting back from recruiting visits and took the time to hang out with us for 50 minutes. But we talked about it at the beginning of the show, kind of how our format for preseason. That starts this week, Thursday. We're going to be putting out 2 episodes a week. Mondays and Thursdays.
Mondays and Thursdays. So this is obviously the first episode. And then Thursday, we will be previewing
Ball State.
Yep. Your alma mater. I was going to let you say it.
Chirp, chirp. I was trying to, in my head, say, do I say chirp, chirp? Do I say Ball State? Do I say the Cardinals? Had to the thought process.
The Cardinals
of what I
Louisville.
No. Disgusting. Yeah, so we will start with Ball State. These are going to be much shorter episodes, obviously twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to run through every school, so that way, if you're interested in a certain school, maybe they're a conference opponent or they're the school that you follow. It'll be nice and digestible for you to listen to on your commute to work.
You can listen to your schools, and then since they're short, maybe you just dive into somebody else's and find some fuel that you can tweet angry things about.
I mean, honestly, you can listen to all 11 just to show love to us, because we
True.
love you for being a loyal listener and viewer, depending on your preferred venue of consumption.
Yeah, so we're excited about that, and then once we go through all 11, we'll be here on the on November 3rd, the day before the season starts. So we'll be back to recap the weekend. I mean, we're gonna be going back into it. I will be doing some guess the game of the weeks that first week. I'm gonna have to remember, that there are 351 other schools, or however many there are.
We also have to remember that, last season all of our episodes were pre-recorded, so
Till the end.
We could edit the guess the game a little bit. We got to keep them easier this year, I think, because I don't
Dead air
going live and then having 5 minutes of the cogs in my brain trying to think of a school in Virginia.
The only thing I can think about Idaho is potatoes.
Yeah,
all timer. Print the shirts.
Honestly, but yeah, really excited to really start getting into preseason, and then starting preseason content means that we are getting closer to end season content, which means college basketball is back.
Yeah, I mean, our hope is to go live, every Sunday and recap it for you. So if you haven't been here for the in-season shows, come join us. We would love to have you. Just show us some love and just listen to some talk about ball.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, we'll be live. So as we're recapping games each week, you can always join in on the Twitter or YouTube chat and let us know, the things of the game that we missed, because we will miss things. So
Yeah.
We want to be interactive.
Last thing about our room, Coach pointed it out, a lot of blue.
Yeah, our chairs are blue. My shirt is blue.
Our flag is blue. The jerseys are blue.
Well, the flag is in the chair. That's our podcast colors. So that's okay, because all of our colors, if you didn't pick up on this by now, the logo of our show, blue and that gold, same blue and gold of the Indiana flag. Little tip behind the curtain for people if they didn't pick up on that. I was very proud of that when I decided our colors. Yeah, a lot of blue. So we need more red. We need more green. We have no green. Shout out Notre Dame.
Yeah, true. But they're also blue.
Well, yeah, but I think we'll have to make sure we get something specifically green for them. Some Valpo. We need some yellow and gold.
Braden Shrewsbury, if you're listening, we'd love to have something.
Yeah, we need more red. A lot of red and blue in our state. We have no purple either. So Evansville.
Yeah.
Elliot, go ahead and send something our way. We will be glad to reorganize the wall.
Coach Ragland, help.
But all right, we're rambling now. The clock is showing quadruple zeros. So it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball podcast. We will see you next week. We will see you this week.
We'll see you Thursday, baby.
We will
3
see you
days.
in a couple days. And remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.